You are now watching the Amazing Mets Pregame Show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets Pregame Show right here on both of our channels. Hopefully everybody is doing great, and if you're a Mets fan right now, you're damn sure doing great right now as the Mets are percentage points ahead in the third wild card, finally all the way back from 11 games under to 2 games over and a wild card spot. And now the work really begins because now they got to hold that spot for as long as possible until we get that playoff spot. And before we get to CP, because this is important, breaking news with Jaylen Brunson signing his extension. I had to say that. I know Junior brought it up in the chat. You know, it was just popped up a couple of minutes ago, and it was expected, but to take $100 million less than he could have, that talk about a team player. And, you know, we talk about certain players that might not take an extension going forward. And that's another reason why I bring it up. That's where it really matters when it comes to a team first mentality. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Great minds think alike on a Friday, Rob. I was going to go down that same path with Jaylen Brunson, leaving over or nearly $100 million on the table. Could have signed the extension next season. We all know what caliber player he is. Decided to sign it this season for 156, just north of it. And like you said, there's certain players or a certain player in this New York Mets organization that is in a similar boat right now, and we'll see how that situation plays out. But we won't name names. This is going to be a positive stream. Obviously, we got a game against what we think is an inferior team, but as we said yesterday on the round table on the post game, you can't take any competition lightly. So we start a 3-game set, the final series before the All-Star break. And you know what? We're looking for 2 of 3. And personally, I'm looking for a clean sweep because if we swept the Nationals, we should be able to sweep the Colorado Rockies at home. But first things first, appreciate everyone in the chat. Hit that thumbs up. Thank you for being here with us today.
Absolutely. And look, the Rockies are one of the worst teams in baseball, have over 60 losses. But when it comes to their lineup can score runs, right? Their pitching has not been really good this year. Tonight, Gordon, I think his ERA is around 7, if I'm not mistaken, unless I misread that. His ERA is around 7, but they can hit. Like they can hit with the best of them, but the way the Mets pitching has been, they've been controlling lineups regardless of who's in the lineup and how good the lineup is. So the Mets got to continue their offensive performances. The pitchers got to go at least 6 innings as they have been over probably around the last 2 weeks. They've been going deeper into ball games and shutting down good lineups. So let's see if they can shut down a lineup that's not great, but they do put up a decent amount of runs. And with Sean Manaea, who's, kind of rejuvenated himself. I don't know if it's Alvarez being back behind the plate that has changed Manaea, his mentality, because he's been going deeper into ball games than he ever did this whole season. And a lot of it is because Alvarez has been behind the plate. How much Alvarez has to do with that, who really knows? But it's obvious that when Alvarez is behind the plate, good things happen with Sean Manaea, and I'm excited about tonight. The Mets could go 3-3 in this homestand, which would be absolutely just demoralizing if that happens. But they have a great opportunity to, at the very least, can go 4-2. That would be bad, but taking 2 out of 3 is where our mindset needs to be, because 5-1 homestand is exactly what probably a lot of us expected going into the homestand. Probably losing 1 to Washington. I don't know about the Rockies, but it is baseball, Chris. But, we're starting to get a little greedy here as Met fans, just because we know these teams are not good. We are better than those teams. So I know we're expecting, we talked about this on the roundtable yesterday, 5-1 is probably acceptable. 6-0 is damn good. And if you go 6-0 in his homestand, guess what? You're 5 games over 500, Chris. And talk about a team that has come back from the dead. That would be just amazing for us.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not like out of question. You're going up against, obviously, we take it one game at a time, right? So we're talking about the Rockies versus Mets tonight. Tanner Gordon's on the mound versus Sean Manaea. Tanner Gordon, obviously, he's got north of a 7 ERA, if I'm not mistaken, but it doesn't matter. Around 7, north of 7 doesn't matter. He only had one start, I believe, this year at the major league level against a Royals team that's pretty good. That game was won by the Royals 10-1. So I don't really know what he has. I don't think anybody in this league really knows what Tanner Gordon has in terms of his arsenal. Not going to judge the guy based off of one lousy start against a pretty solid team. But, it's business as usual for this Mets team. And it doesn't matter because they faced a wide variety and a wide range of talent level in the opposition against, the starting pitchers of this entire league. And they've handled the best of the best exceptionally well. So there's no reason why a guy like Patrick Corbin goes into Citi Field and goes out there and goes and breezes through 5 innings and then the Mets get to him, right? There's no reason why a Mackenzie Gore would do the same thing. This lineup is clicking and they're getting to these pitchers. It doesn't matter what end of the spectrum they're at, whether they're talented and elite or they're newcomers like Tanner Gordon here. They need to get to them early and often. And if I had any gripe with this Mets lineup, right, of all the runs they're scoring, of everything, Lindor's doing a great job in the first inning, but I'd like to see them strike earlier and more often because I still think that would be the recipe for success for our starting pitchers to get more in a comfortable groove, so to speak. So Sean Manaea, like you said as well, very excited to see him because he's been great his last 3 outings. Don't know if it's Alvarez. Don't know if he's been working on something, but he's another one of these Mets pitchers. We talk about it with Quintana. We talk about it with David Peterson, and we saw it with David Peterson last start. When you get ahead in counts, please make competitive pitches because, quite frankly, these pitchers for the Mets, the 3 that I just named, and even Tyler McGill, when he's back up or if he's ever back up with his team, he lumps into this category. They are not talented enough, and no disrespect to them, they are not talented enough to throw waste pitches. I'm sorry. They're not. Because it just seems like you get up 0-2, 1-2, you throw a waste pitch, and all of a sudden, you're out of your groove. And it becomes 2-2, 3-2. And all of a sudden, we're walking the ballpark here. David Peterson did just that, but he was able to skirt around trouble. So Sean Manaea is at his best when he has command of that sweeper and when he's locating it for competitive pitches, even when he is ahead in the count. That's what I want to see out of Sean Manaea. But the lineup, we got Iglesias and McNeil in here together, Bader rounding it out. I'm confident. Any single game the Mets go into right now with the way they've been playing over the past month, 2 months, I'm confident in this lineup.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who we're playing. Like if you're a Mets fan right now and you're not confident going into almost every game, regardless of the team you're facing, the roster you're facing, I don't know where you've been. Like, don't get me wrong. When you get into the game, and you're right, Chris, the lineup hasn't been scoring early. It seemed like they've been scoring from the 5th inning on and keeping teams in it and making it interesting, and then finally, leave them in the dust later in the ball game. And that's fun, but it's still nerve-wracking because the game against Washington, we didn't score until the 5th inning. It started to get a little dicey. Like, oh, come on, we're making one of the worst pitchers right now, making them look good, and then we break open and we get the 5 runs. They do got to score early, right? Give the starting pitching, and I talk about this all the time. Give the starting pitcher some breathing room, right? It feels like they always had to be perfect for the first couple of innings, and if they mess up a little bit, it seems like, all right, here we go again. We got to come back, but give them a little bit of leave room because this rotation has been a quality rotation. Now, they've done it in the hardest way possible by walking the ballpark and trying to get out a ton of jams, as you just talked about with Peterson. Manaea did that early in the season. Quintana was doing it earlier in the season. And it seems like it was a trend with this rotation that they would find a way out of a ton of jams, but they would put their pitch count up. They wouldn't get those batters out. They would get into a pitcher's count, and then it would be 3-2 almost every time. And, of course, walking a few of those guys. And now they had to put themselves in pressurized situations that they could have not been in if they would have just been more aggressive when they were ahead in the count. And you've seen that over, I would say, about even when during this long stretch, about 6 week stretch where the Mets have been one of the best teams in baseball. Over the last 2 weeks is when I've noticed they've been a lot more aggressive on 2 strikes against a batter. They've been finding that put out pitch to get the batter out. And I don't know if that's Hefner, I don't know if that's an Alvarez mentality or what, but they definitely have been putting away more batters than not over, I would say, about 2 weeks now. And that's a great sign because look how much better they have pitched and longer and deeper they've been into ball games, which can only help this Mets team that has struggled to find, trusted bullpen arms through 4 innings, maybe 5 innings in a game. I'd rather deal with the bullpen 2 or 3 innings than 4 or 5 innings. And that's why these guys like Manaea, Quintana, Severino need to go at least 6 innings just to make sure that we get the right people out of the pen for games that we should be winning and not give a chance for the bullpen to blow it up with 4 or 5 innings during a game, because that's when disaster happens. So yeah, you're right. Over the last 2 weeks or so, they've been more aggressive, getting ahead of the count and taking care of business and trying to get that batter out earlier in the count than messing around and trying to pick away. And it just adds to their pitch count, which overall doesn't help this Mets team going later into the ball game, especially with that bullpen use that they have been using and the lack of trust that Mendoza has with a lot of these pitchers, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you talk about the bullpen too, because we do have some news out of Mets camp today. David Peterson got placed on a paternity list, so congratulations to him. And Eric Orzi's coming back up. Guy got one opportunity, failed, and he's coming back right back up. So hopefully this team is able to put Orzi in a better situation. Maybe not a situation where, obviously, I'm still kind of in the boat where that situation in Pittsburgh, you need one out, dude. You're a major league player at this point. You got called up. I understand that's not the ideal spot for the guy, but you should be able to get one out at the very minimum. But very much looking forward to seeing how Eric Orzi, I believe his first name is Eric, but Mr. Orzi bounces back after that failure in Pittsburgh. But yeah, perfect opportunity. David Peterson will be on the paternity list. If you guys missed it, I forgot who broke that news on X, but that was a little bit of Mets news today. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We'll see how this bullpen shakes out. It's going to be a much needed rest for this rotation and for this bullpen in this upcoming All-Star break. I think that the Mets, they have an opportunity to go and feel so very confident about themselves with another series win, finishing off the first half, and they get to have rest outside of Pete Alonso. And maybe if Brandon Nimmo cracks the replacement list for the NL All-Stars. But you know what I mean? Rest up. Got positive news on Sean Reed-Foley as well. He's progressing from that shoulder impingement. Help is on the way, not only for the bullpen, right, but also for the starting rotation with Kodai Senga. This is the perfect way to round out a first half with how hot these guys have been playing. Don't underestimate your competition, though, Rob, like you said, because things happen very quickly in this league. That's it.
Yeah.
No excuses. I mean, the press Mr. Met is saying it right here. Like, I don't want to say sweep because I really do go by series wins, and this is the MLB after all, but there's really no reason the Mets shouldn't sweep this Rockies team. I'm sorry.
Agreed.
There's no reason. And I agree with you, Depressed Mr. Met, 100%. But yeah, help is on the way, guys. Help is on the way. And that's exactly, we've weathered the storm. This team has weathered the storm. We saw everything get thrown this team's way between injuries, between suspensions, between everything else that could possibly happen. Help is on the horizon, both internally from guys returning from injury, but also David Stearns continuing to work the phones. And I don't want to get you on a rant because I know this is going to get you on a rant, Rob, but please, guys, please, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, do not buy into these bogus ass reports on X surrounding Pete Alonso and the Houston Astros. I've seen quotes saying that the Houston Astros have not agreed, but have given the Mets a package that the Mets, quote unquote, like.
Yeah.
What in the hell are the Astros going to give the Mets outside of a Kyle Tucker that's going to satisfy the demands of what the Mets are going to want for one of the most premier
Correct.
power hitters in the league? You can
Correct.
talk about his clutchness or lack thereof, whatever. You can talk about him not succeeding with runners in scoring position, but at this time, on July 12th, there is no chance that I believe any of these reports swirling out there. I'm sorry. I know we said it yesterday, but I figured
Yeah.
because I saw more tweets about it today
Yeah.
from these lesser reporters, I had to say it again.
I wasn't going to bring it up because this is more about our Mets in the pregame, but it is important because I went on the rant on the roundtable about this, that these reporters are trying to find any hole in this Mets organization. They're trying to poke holes in the chemistry of this team. They're trying to poke hole in the organization. They're trying to find doomsday for this Mets team. And I don't know what agenda do they really have against the Mets? Because it's not just Jim Bowden, right? It's multiple guys now that are bringing this up. And you know what? Are the Astros calling the Mets and talking to Stearns and asking about Pete Alonso? Because that's understandable. And Stearns is not doing his job if he doesn't listen. I'm not saying for Stearns to hang up the phone as soon as they hear Alonso's name. He's not doing his job. But the way it keeps on sounding is that Stearns is shopping Pete Alonso. That's the way it sounds to me in these reports. So I think that is so bogus. And if it's not, and let me just, try to go on I guess on the other side of the reporter side. If this is true and David Stearns is shopping Pete Alonso, because he did talk about the whole buying, selling, hybrid type of trade deadline. If he's really thinking about using Pete Alonso to get what he needs, what this team really needs, and that's a ton of bullpen help, aren't you shopping low on Pete Alonso? In my opinion, like I just don't look. I've criticized Pete Alonso more than a lot of people around social media in general, but even I'm not that stupid to realize that, like, what would the Astros give up that can help this team now? Because the only thing I can think of is top prospects. And how is top prospects unless there's a guy in their farm system that can really help this organization on August 1st? I don't see how that's going to help us now. Maybe in the
already
future,
said
yes.
it. The Mets already took their top prospects last season.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, I just don't get that. That's why I think it's a lot of smoke. And a lot of these reporters, they have an agenda against the Mets. This has always been the case ever since Cohen took the job. There's been something about most, not all. Some of them are just bad reporters, but some of them do have an agenda. Even ones that I thought I respected are having agendas, have some type of agenda, a hated agenda or something against the Mets or Steve Cohen or somebody, because success for the Mets feels like the reporters rather have the Yankees be the darling of New York than the Mets be the talk of the town. Because guess what, guys? The Mets are winning the back pages right now. The Mets are the talk of the town. The Yankees are spiraling out of control when the Mets are on top of the world right now. Again, records aren't even close, but the way the teams are playing over the last month, the Mets have been the hottest team. The Mets are a dangerous team when the Yankees aren't. And I feel like anytime that happens, somebody in the world of reporters, or a couple of them in New York, find ways to poke hole in a good thing that's happening with the Mets. And it pisses me off. I apologize. This is the pregame. This is not about, negativity, but we're not even bringing the negativity. It's the reporters who already had a terrible offseason are now making these, I want to say, acquisition. I don't know what it's called anymore, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, if it's true, then Stearns is clearly, I don't know what he's doing. Like, I would be very disappointed in Stearns if he's the one calling the Houston Astros. But I feel like it's the other way around. The Astros are like, hey, you need bullpen help? You need this? Hey, look at the assets we have. But we want Pete Alonso. We know they need a first baseman. So, yeah, I understand them calling Stearns. See, if they would have reported, hey, the Astros are calling about Pete Alonso, okay. But the report's not that, or multiple reports are not that. It makes it seem like Stearns is shopping Pete Alonso, and that
They
does
have
not make
had
sense.
talks. They have had talks, which insinuates that it is
Yeah,
mutual talks and the Mets are talking back,
well,
which
correct,
we don't know if that's fact or fiction. And I would
correct.
assume, like you are assuming, right? Like in David Stearns' best faith in terms of what he has told us as Mets fans, that
Yeah,
he is not actively shopping Pete Alonso, especially when this team is in the middle of a wild card playoff race. Now, like I said, anything can happen because we still don't know what the vision is of David Stearns and this team, especially with Pete Alonso. We don't know if Pete Alonso, if the Mets understand that Pete Alonso is just simply not going to come back. Like, that's also on the table as well.
correct.
Anything and everything with Pete Alonso is on the table. But
Yes.
right now, I just think that it's a little too early, and that these quotes and these reports, especially from The Athletic and Jim Bowden, no less, that hates the Mets, that we already know he hates the Mets. It's not shocking to see, but it's disappointing to see, because you know what? At the end of the day, we realize, and most of the chat right now realizes, that this is just straight BS, but there's going to be a lot of people that are just going to run with this, and they're going to run with this. And I feel sorry for those people, but it would be, I'm doing my due diligence, and we're doing our due diligence to make sure everyone in here knows that these reporters are basically just using Mets for clicks tactics here. That's
Yeah, it is frustrating. You know, some people, and I see Brad talking in the chat about you can't lose him for nothing. Yeah, you can, right? Even with giving him the qualifying offer, you could do that and get a pick regardless of what the pick is. You know, there's ways to work around that. And at the end of the day, I think the Mets will make a competitive offer. I already said this. I think Pete Alonso's taking the first bigger offer that some other team gives him, even if the Mets match it. I've said that multiple times, and I don't think Stearns is gonna bat a tear, to be quite honest with you, because I think he has somebody in the minors that he's thinking of replacing Pete Alonso at first base, and that is good old Ryan Clifford, who I think is showing that he's probably going to be up here in 2025. And I know we're not talking about the future right now of the Mets, but that's something to look at. But to trade Pete Alonso now doesn't really make a lot of sense, because what do you really get, and that's going to help this team on August 1st if you do trade Pete Alonso? Now, if you're telling me, if it was a team that is just trying to sell tickets and that are not in a playoff run, which it still don't make sense to trade Pete, why would they want Pete Alonso for 2 months? It makes no sense. But if you this is what kills me about the reporters. You know what? How about finding out what is the offer? How about that? To make it more realistic, put up a bullshit offer up there and make the teams deny it, right? Because they're not doing that. And, give me an offer. Maybe I look at the offer, I'm like, that makes sense for both teams. Imagine that, a trade with 2 playoff contending teams benefiting from both the offer, the way the trade would look. But give me an offer. Maybe I'll see. Wow, you know what? Hey, they are really giving up on some bullpen and giving us some bullpen and maybe another top prospect or something like that. Because that's what it would take. It would take multiple really good arms in the bullpen and a top 3 or 4, probably top 5 prospect to even think about trading Pete Alonso, which I still don't understand why, but it has to be beneficial for both teams right now in the present, because it doesn't make sense. Why would the Astros trade quality bullpen arms? Isn't that hurting their team even though they need a first baseman? It's just very odd. And I know we're not trying to talk about Astros baseball here, but it is the only way that trade works if it benefits both teams who are trying to fight for a playoff spot. But right now, what is our concern? Pete Alonso is still on this team. Pete Alonso, we keep on talking about, needs to get to his next level, because we know there's a next level. He's the one guy during this 6-7 week stretch that really hasn't peaked out yet. Lindor has, Nimmo has, Martinez has, even Vientos has. 2 guys, specifically Alonso and Alvarez, really haven't hit their peak yet. Alonso hasn't been hotter than hot, who is just driving the ball to right center. It feels like every 6 or 7 at bats he's hitting a home run. He hasn't gotten there yet this year. And Alvarez his power kind of is lost right now. And those two guys still haven't hit their peak, yet the Mets have been one of the hottest teams in baseball through this 6-7 week stretch. And that's amazing within itself. But if those two guys get to that next level that we all talk about and know they can get to, with Lindor, with Nimmo, with Martinez, with Vientos playing the way they've been playing, and let's not forget Iglesias and Bader, this team still has another level to get to, and they've been one of the hottest teams in baseball, Chris. So it's up to Alonso and Alvarez this series to, you know what, finish up strong in the first half. Let Met fans show some confidence, at least in Pete Alonso, because there is a lot of Met fans who argued with me the whole season that is starting to kind of, I wouldn't say worry, but starting to question Pete Alonso and what's going on with him over these first 92 games of the season, because he's not the same Pete Alonso this year, Chris.
And I wanted to touch on something that you said regarding the comparison of Alvarez and Pete Alonso, because even though Alvarez hasn't really hit that stride that we know that he can, especially with the long ball, same thing with Pete Alonso, the core fundamental difference between these two players right now over the games that we've been seeing them, especially when Alvarez has been back, is the quality of their at-bats. Alvarez has understood how to lay off that down and out slider that he usually last year particularly struggled with. Pete Alonso is on a complete opposite end of the spectrum. He has not figured out how to lay off that pitch because he's looking silly up there chasing sliders in the other batter's box consistently. It's almost like he's not picking up the ball out of the pitcher's hand. So that's where I will say, even though Alvarez hasn't hit his stride yet in terms of hitting the baseball and getting that result, he is getting on base. He's boasting a 373 on base percentage compared to Pete Alonso's. I know the statistics are kind of skewed because Alvarez missed a good chunk of games there, but Pete Alonso's is down at 322, which is not terrible at the end of the day, but it's not really where you want Pete Alonso to be at. And just like the eye test too, for me, they're taking different level and different quality of at-bats. So that's what I wanted to point out, the difference of those two. But yeah, Pete Alonso, man, I mean, sometimes he looks locked in and others he doesn't. There's no consistency with him right now. There's some at-bats, like the one against the Nationals where he drove the ball to right center field, like you said, and got JD Martinez over to third base, where I'm like, wow, let's see if he can replicate that in some sort of capacity the next at-bat. But no, the very next at-bat, after such a great at-bat, hitting the ball to right center field and getting a double out of it, he follows up with chasing pitches again. So I don't know if he's guessing up there, and I don't know if he's just not seeing the pitch well, or if he's just like in his own head, but there's something missing in his at-bats with his approach or with his confidence that just tells me he is not right. And I agree with you. Like, we say this all the time. This Mets lineup would be infinitely better than it is. Shocking enough to say, because they've been tremendous if Pete Alonso was able to find that within himself and just lay off. Like, if Pete Alonso, instead of grounding out or popping the ball up on terrible pitches, draws walks in those at-bats, the Mets would be scoring even more runs, which is scary to think about. I'm fine with Pete Alonso walking. If they're not going to pitch to him, if they're not going to give him competitive pitches to hit, I'm fine with him walking. Alvarez has learned how to lay off those pitches, but Pete hasn't. And that is my issue right now with the way that Pete Alonso's playing. I just want to sort of like make that comparison because from I don't know if you agree with me. You can tell me if you don't agree, but just looking at these two guys at the plate when they come up, it's just clear what the difference is right now. Pitch recognition is what I would.
Correct. And you know what? Alvarez is hovering around, is barking up. I believe he just hit under 300 now, but he was at 300. So his average has gone up significantly from last year. And yes, the home runs are down, but, Alvarez is, one swing away from hitting a ball over the wall, and he's still been much more clutch than Pete Alonso as well. And that's the issue, right? What I've seen from Alvarez is becoming a better overall all-around hitter. Right? Yeah, the power is probably going to come back, but you could see that he worked on putting the ball more in play, letting the fielders put it in play. Fielders make mistakes too, right? So, putting it in play, not striking out as much, taking the walks when they're given to you. And that is Pete. This is the problem. This is going on year 6 with Pete Alonso, right? Or 5 or 6 with Pete Alonso. That's the issue. Like, you have to be a smarter ball player and a smarter offensive player right now than you could be 3 years ago. Like, you have to be willing to take those walks. Like you said, Chris, if he was walking twice a game because they didn't want to pitch to him, then all right, you don't have that many opportunities to hit the ball over the wall. But when you're not walking, what is he? I think he's walking once every like 5 at bats or 6 at bats. That's not really that good when you considering all those other at bats are either strikeouts or soft fly balls or ground balls that are making outs and not being productive. Like with the Alvarez, you're 100% right. Alvarez has been productive without the power than Pete Alonso has with the power. And Easy brought it up. He has 4 home runs in the last 30 games. That's over, 11 at bats per home run. That's not going to cut it. I'm sorry. When you don't do anything else to be productive for this team right now, and how you get those tremendous amount of RBIs and 40 plus home runs is by hitting those home runs every 6 to 7 at bats, closer to 8, around that 6 to 8 at bats, where you are scared. The pitchers are scared to face you. They would rather face Pete Alonso than they would Alvarez or anybody else in this lineup right now. Like, if there's a guy in this lineup, all right, Jeff McNeil, we get it. But from the first 7 batters, who would you rather face in a big spot? I guarantee you, if you would give truth serum to all these pitchers, they would say Pete Alonso because there's a way to get him out. It doesn't seem like it's an easy way to get anybody else out of this lineup, and that's an issue, Chris. 100% an issue. But you're right about the whole Alvarez thing. He's been a lot more productive with the lack of power than Pete Alonso has overall, and that's a real issue. It's concerning.
What I will say is that opposing pitchers know there is no incentive to throw Pete Alonso strikes, or at least they will not throw it anywhere in the vicinity on 1-1, 1-2, etc. Because more often than not, they're playing the percentage game that they can get him to chase. And more often than not, what has Pete Alonso done? He has chased. So it's very disappointing for us to just routinely see, because the frustration factor is that we want him to succeed. We want him to prove everybody wrong. And I'm not saying that he's been like piss poor, like he's been the worst player in the league. I mean, we're not saying that. We have a bar set for Pete Alonso, and he should have a bar set for himself if he wants the kind of money that he wants, right? So that's kind of the angle that we're taking. So yeah, like I said, until he learns to lay off those pitches right now, with who he is, like just his name in general, and just also coupled with the fact of where he's at in the lineup batting cleanup, usually with runners in scoring position, you would assume if the top 3 guys get on base, they're not going to throw him any strikes. And he's just going to have a tough go at it if he keeps swinging at those balls.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing, because we know there's a high standard for Pete Alonso, right? We can't make him at one point the face of the franchise, and a guy who we know can hit 45 home runs, 120 RBIs, bat 250. Like, he's not even getting to that point anymore, and that's why it's so frustrating, because we know there's an extra level and that bar that we expect him to get at, and when he's not there, you start questioning. I know he's only 30 years old, but you start questioning. A bigger guy that everybody always talks about his body type, is he slowly breaking down? And this is the beginning of the end for Pete Alonso. It might sound crazy, but we've seen it before in baseball, especially with bigger first basemen who don't have the exact quote unquote baseball body. And I'm not saying Pete Alonso's breaking down, but it is something to question when you're trying to give a guy, or thinking about giving a guy $200+ million over a 7-8 year span throughout the rest of his career. And if you think this is the downfall of the beginning, and that's what we're going to get for the rest of the time, that's something that you have to think of as well. But in regards to this team now, it's frustrating because we know how much better this entire team can be if Alonso is at his peak. And he never really had that hot streak this year. He might have had maybe 1 or 2 games, maybe 3 in a row where he was beating up the baseball, but it hasn't been a 2, 3, 4 week stretch where you can't get Pete Alonso out, and he's hitting a ton of home runs. He's driving in runs all over the place. His best type of at bat is when he drives that ball to right center, as me and you said, Chris. So it's frustrating, but I still have that little bit of hope that a little bit of rest for the All-Star break, even though he's going to be in a home run derby and quote unquote in the All-Star game, but he's not going to really be, front and center after the home run derby. So he's going to get a couple of days rest. I think he can take a breather. It seems like post home run derby, regardless of winning or losing, he picks it up. And maybe the home run derby gives him a little of that boost of energy, and he'll have a really excellent second half. And now we're talking about Pete Alonso being one of the better players on this team in the second half. Maybe that would be the case, because it's only going to help us, right? All of us want egg on our face. I don't want to criticize Pete Alonso, but he's worthy of it this entire season, because we know we can be better than that. And that's why it's frustrating. But I do have this glimmer of hope that in the second half, he's going to be the Pete Alonso we expect him to be. And it's only going to benefit this team. And I'm hoping that's the case, Chris, because this team has been so good. I want Alonso to join the party. It would just make it so much more fun, right? I can shut up about the criticism. I would love to. I don't want to do this crap anymore, criticizing Pete Alonso, but I'm not going to criticize the 23rd man on the roster and can't criticize one of our main stars on this team. It's not fair to the 23rd man on the roster, and I'm not shying away to criticize one of the stars of this team when he deserves it. And this goes for anybody. And Pete Alonso is being deserved for criticism right now. But I do expect him, Chris, to turn around the second half, right? Some positivity from my mouth for Pete Alonso, because I expect it from him. And I hope that I'm right, that I think the second half is going to be big for him. But I hope damn sure I'm wrong. I'm not wrong on this, because that would suck. Because I wouldn't know what to think about Pete Alonso anymore. And that's the frustrating part with a team that's been one of the better teams in baseball.
It wouldn't be a pregame stream from us two if it wasn't a Pete Alonso 10-minute rant, huh?
Hey.
How about that?
Listen,
it never
Mets
fails.
Pregame,
It never fails. No, but honestly, I agree with you 100%. I'm not ready to call it quits on Pete Alonso in terms of this season, right? And him turning it around. I think that, this break, it could be all it takes to turn Pete Alonso around. I think he's that dynamic of a hitter when he is not chasing pitches. And that's really the big thing. I can say it 10 million times, but it's only up to him in order to change that approach. But moving on to today's game before we wrap things up. Yeah, I agree with you. The Rockies splits, home versus away, they're putrid. They're a terrible road team. Oh, fire alarm just went off. Apologies.
Oh, shoot.
Take
I
it
thought
away,
that was
Rob.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, because the thunder just went rampant by me. So I thought it was me for a second. I was like, I turned to the left, like, holy crap. Yeah, so we got fire alarms, we got thunder going on. That means we're talking perfectly about the Mets, because everything's just been going off perfectly. So
I gotta hop on out of here. So let's go Mets and just win. I apologize for cutting this short. If you can't hear, I gotta exit the building. So peace.
All right, man. Bye-bye. All right, man. All right, guys. So I'm going to finish this up right now as Chris make sure he gets out of harm's way here when it comes to whatever's going on over there. So hopefully everything's good on his end. But yeah, guys, to finish up the stream right now, guys, the fact of the matter is this team has proven almost everybody wrong, right? If you go back to my prediction to start the season and Chris's prediction to start the season of how many wins the Mets are going to have, we both had them over 500. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to say it wrong, but I think Chris had 83 or 84 wins for the Mets, and I had 87. And that's not too far out of the realm at this point, as they're 2 games over. But I had 87, and I got destroyed. People thought I was absolutely nuts. But there was supposed to be one thing, or at least 2 things, that was going to be trusted. It was the Mets lineup, and, well, before the injuries, it was going to be the bullpen that was going to be solid. The starting rotation was the biggest question mark. Now, the biggest question mark is the bullpen, and the starting pitching has been probably a solid number 2, and the lineup has shown what they were supposed to do all season as the number 1 most trusted for this team. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. Both of our numbers, win totals, are right in is reachable at this point, obviously. And this team is good enough. And I just want to see another level to this whole team, because I think it's very possible. And they should be better than what they were, right? And they are right now. You know, the May completely destroyed. And I went back to this a couple of streams ago because I thought it was important, right? The Mets have had one bad month out of 3 so far. May was terrible. April was average. They ended April on at 500. June was excellent. July has started off a game or 2 over 500, not bad, right? Because once you get back to 500 and you're right back in the mix, you just don't want to have sub 500 records for the month, right? You want to be at 500 or above. Right now, I think they're a game or 2 over 500 or right at 500. I don't know the exact numbers, but they're very close, either above 500 a game or maybe right at 500 or maybe 2 games over 500. I haven't really checked it, but I think it's right around there. If they have a above 500 record in July, that's 3 out of 4 months where you had over 500 or above months, and that's how you stay in these races. That's how you remain competitive. And I know nobody liked that word going to start the season that Stearns kept on talking about and Steve Cohen kept on talking about. But we knew this was going to be an offseason where they weren't going to spend an outrageous amount of money, right? And let's be honest, guys, besides Shohei Ohtani, who was really out there that was deserving of big contracts? And look at all the free agents that the Mets could have got that are either injured, who hasn't even played this year, or having really down seasons. So how much would they really help? We obviously we don't know everything, but obviously it was kind of good call on certain ends. Now there could have been certain things done with the rotation, maybe, but even then, the rotation still has been a lot better than expected. And a lot of Mets fans have egg on their face when it comes to the rotation, because people laughed at the Severino signing that was going to be a disaster, and he's been our best pitcher. Sean Manaea has been a quality sign-in, right? Quintana has stepped back up after not a really good first 2 months, have been pitching really well over his last 3 or 4 starts. So this rotation that Stearns has put together with a bunch of, guys that nobody really thought is probably better than a number 3, if that, mostly number 4s and number 5s. And a lot of these guys have pitched like number 3s, and Severino at times has pitched like an ace and definitely pitched like a number 2. So that's the other important thing to realize, that the things that we worried about the most have outperformed what we thought they were going to do as an overall rotation. It's been a lot better, right? David Peterson has been outstanding coming back from injury. I don't know how. We all wanted him off this team, but he's been better than Tyler McGill, who everybody thought would probably get one more chance prior to the season, a part of this rotation, not David Peterson. So David Peterson has been a godsend, has been helping this rotation, and we are getting reinforcements back, right? Christian Scott has just got back into this rotation. There's a possibility that Jose Buto might go back into this rotation to make a 6-man rotation when Kodai Senga comes back. There might be options here. And the reinforcement of Kodai Senga, who knows how good he can be, right? Even if he's giving us quality starts and not peak Kodai Senga, but giving us quality starts, that is going to win us ball games, because we know how good Kodai Senga is when that ghost pitch is untouchable. So there's a lot to look forward to this season, right? We can talk about the trade deadline as much as we want. We know what the Mets needs are, right? It's not that hard to figure out, right? It looked like the starting lineup is fine. You don't really need to really go deep into that and worry about using assets to fix this lineup, because the lineup for years We've been always going into the trade deadline when we're trying to make a run, talking about we need another bat. This is probably the first time in a long time the Mets really don't need another bat. Now they can really work on getting all the bullpen help they can get, from elite arms to, I would say quality above average arms in this bullpen as well, right? I think the Mets are going to go very heavy after Carlos Estevez of the Angels, and the Mets and Angels have done a lot of little deals and some pretty decent deals over the last 4 to 5 years to make some trades here and there. So they've had this rapport together and chemistry when it comes to trades in the past. And I do think the Mets are going to go very heavy after Carlos Estevez. And not only because he's a really good arm in the bullpen, it's just that having that 1-2 punch and giving Diaz off a day here and there, if he pitches too much, you got another trusted arm to close games. That is going to help a lot. And if you get Estevez, he can definitely be your bridge guy to Diaz and occasionally close, but you push everybody back. You'll have Nunez in the 6 or 7. You'll have Danny Young in the 6 or 7. You have, if Jose Buto remains in the bullpen, he'll be in the 6 or 7. So now you stretch out this bullpen. You don't got to worry about the 8th or the 9th for the majority of games, and your bullpen gets lengthened out. So that's the most important thing. So, guys, with this lineup tonight, I love this lineup. Right? 1 through 7, love. McNeil, kind of starting to put better at bats. Haven't really been showing a lot of he hasn't been getting those hits, but the at bats are better, right? To start that 5-run 5th inning, that with Nimmo getting a 3 RBI double, McNeil was a part of that. He got a big walk in that inning to really get things rolling there, to allow the top of the lineup to come back up in that inning when it looked like it was going to be a quick inning for the Mets, and the bottom of the order did their job, and that includes Jeff McNeil. And I like Jeff McNeil looking at more pitches. He's been getting deeper in counts. That's a start for Jeff McNeil. He needs to hit more, but I want to see the quality at bats, especially at the bottom of the order. The big importance of the bottom of the order is to find any way to get on base. I don't care if you bat in 220 right now. I'd rather you be batting 300, Jeff McNeil. But your job is to get on base by any means necessary, right? If that means you get more walks, then get more walks. Your job at the bottom of the order is to turn over the lineup and get back to the top of the order while you're on base. That's your job, right? Average be damned at this point. You're not going to hit 300 this year unless you go on an amazing run. You're probably going to get close to 240 if you start hitting, maybe 250. But your job is to turn over the lineup. Get the big boys up while you're on base. That is your job. So this lineup has been outstanding. They're still scoring just above 6 runs per ball game. They're still dangerous teams. Pitchers can't get a breather with this lineup. And I love that about this lineup right now, regardless of who they put in. Right? Even when Stewart's in there, he doesn't really do anything, but it doesn't seem like it affects the lineup enough offensively to worry about it too much. But right now, this lineup, Tanner Gordon is going to have a hard time getting through this lineup, just like a lot of pitchers have over this last 6-7 weeks of Mets baseball. And Tanner Gordon has a 7 ERA. So let's beat this guy up. Let's make this a no contest. Give Sean Manaea an early lead. Let him feel comfortable on the mound. Citi Field will be rocking this weekend. There was really good crowds in the middle of the week for the National Series. I expect big crowds Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Citi Field. 3 games before the All-Star break. The Mets are 2 games over 500. I don't want to hear Met fans now saying, oh, I'm not going to go to watch this team and spend 2 hours in traffic going to the game. Well, there's no excuse anymore. They're playing well. So go to the game, right? If I wish I was in New York right now, I'd be going every day, just like I used to when I was in New York. I used to go almost every day, right? I used to do pre-games in my car most of the time. You guys know that. I used to do pre-games, a couple like 10-minute pre-games at Citi Field. I love going there, right? Circumstances happen. I had to move. It is what it is. I moved out of state, right, for the betterment of my life. You know, the Mets are a big part of my life, but other things need to happen in life, right? I wish I was there. Trust me, I wish I was there, right? Giving away my season tickets kind of made me feel very disappointed and made me feel a little sad, to be quite honest with you, right? And it's not, oh, wait, somebody's back. I found somebody. I think the fire alarm is good. Yeah, there he is.
Good, all good. Wow, sorry for that. Abrupt.
It's all good. So I was just finishing up about the lineup and how there are a lot of people in the chat talking about how that Citi Field should be rocking this weekend, and they had pretty good crowds in the middle of the week in the National Series. And I was like, I'm disappointed. I would love to be in New York right now. I would be going to Citi Field every night. Like I would. Like it's so fun going to games when your team is doing well and they're in contention. It's so much fun. You feel the vibe, you feel the atmosphere at Citi Field. I felt it in 2022. Every game you went to, no matter if it was playing the Braves or the Nationals or the Pirates, it didn't matter. You just felt the energy. And I'm starting to feel it through the TV. Like Grimace freaking, down in the beer, like chugging a beer. Like it's just insane. The vibes are different right now, Chris. And I was just going to end it before I show you pop back on. But if you could stay for a couple more minutes, why the hell not, right? Unless you're okay. All right, we're good. All right, so I was just talking about the lineup. How I brought up Jeff McNeil. Like this lineup is dangerous, basically 1 through 9. Jeff McNeil, even though he hasn't been getting the hits, have been putting better at bats together. Right, taking that big walk yesterday in the 5th inning to really turn over this lineup to get to the big boys at the top. And I like to see Jeff. It's a start, right? Jeff McNeil putting better at bats together, taking more pitches, getting deeper into counts. That's a start for Jeff McNeil. Even though we want him to hit more, it's a start. You got to start somewhere. And if Jeff McNeil can start going at least a little bit of shades of 300, Jeff McNeil, then you're really talking about a lineup 1 through 9 that if you're a pitcher, you're not going to be able to take a breath, Chris. That's what's great about it. And they're doing that right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we have so many conversations surrounding Jeff McNeil, and deservingly so, because the results just simply aren't there. And his at-bats really have been getting at least slightly better. Now, he's not getting hits in the same capacity that we're usually sort of used to seeing him. And we don't know what the future holds for Jeff McNeil, especially in this deadline, maybe even in the offseason where the Mets can flip him for something, whether it's bullpen help, etc. We don't know. But his at-bats, we're talking about strictly for the rest of this season. If he's a New York Met past the deadline, he's presumably going to be playing, right? Whether it's every day or in a split platoon role with Jose Iglesias, who is doing tremendous himself, we want to see him take better at-bats. I'm starting to see that just a little bit with Jeff McNeil. Now, like I said, whether the result's a hit or not is not what I determine if it's a good at-bat. He is laying off of tough pitches. He's working counts. And I don't like I'm the biggest proponent for if you're a hitter like Brandon Nimmo or Lindor or Pete. Like, if you get a strike, you swing at it. You don't need to work the count if you're those guys. But if you're Jeff McNeil on a lesser status, right? If you're Tyrone Taylor on a little bit of a lesser status in terms of the talent level with the bat, yes, you're probably going to want to work the count more often than not. So at least I've been seeing that from Jeff McNeil. I'll take positives wherever I can find them with Jeff McNeil, and that's been the trend that I've been seeing here recently. But I agree here. Jose Iglesias, Jeff McNeil, and Harrison Bader, 2 or 3 guys at the bottom of this order that are perfect table setters for the big guys to come up. In the top of the order, Lindor, Nemo, Martinez, and hopefully Pete Alonso gets it going to drive those bottom 3 guys in. So I like the tandem in which the Mets lineup is working with. At the beginning of the season, it was bottom of the lineup was succeeding, top wasn't. It transferred a little bit. There's an intermediate time where it was top of the lineup was succeeding, bottom of the lineup wasn't. And now we're starting to see a hybrid, which is making this lineup dangerous. We're only missing those 2 guys in my book, right? You mentioned Alvarez as well, but for me, it's Pete and Jeff. If they get going, watch out.
Yeah, and to go back to Jeff McNeil for a second, he faced a lot of tough lefties over this stretch of games, and it wasn't easy. He was laying off a hell of a lot of tough sliders and to get a couple of walks and at least put a good at-bats together without really getting a lot of hits. And that's a really good sign. Him not really, fishing for those terrible balls in the dirt against tough lefties. So that's a good sign. Yeah. And you're right. Now it is like a hybrid now, where if the top of the lineup is getting it done, you damn sure the bottom of the lineup will, and vice versa. Like that. That's basically the way it's been. And that's the whole point, right? We always talk about picking up each other. And when you got chemistry with a team that is obvious now, they're just spilling confidence and chemistry right now. You can't wait to pick up your teammate. Like if they're struggling right now and they're a little bit down, we got you. Don't worry about it. Get back to the bench, figure out yourself. We'll take care of it today. That's something that we have not seen the Mets team do, especially early on this season, and they're doing that now. Why? Like when if somebody has a bad game, we're not really talking about that bad game for one of these guys in the lineup, because somebody else picked them up and the Mets win a ball game, right? When you lose and nobody else picks you up, that's when you start to say, all right, this guy needs to be better, because it jumpstarts the lineup. But every night it's somebody new, right? Yes, we know Nimmo and Lindor, who have been killing it, but even, Vientos would have hit, Iglesias would have base hit, Beta would have clutch hit. Like it's been everybody. And good teams use every man on their roster. Every man from number 1 to 26 are important. And when you start winning, using everybody, and let's be honest, the Mets have used everybody on their roster that they could, and they're just finding ways to win in any way possible. Bottom of the order, top of the order, started pitching goes deep. Like the bullpen actually shows up every now and then and wins a ball game for us. Like it's all over the place, and it's spilling confidence. And listen, I turn on the TV now, I expect to win. Remember when we were talking about this in May, that if we turn on the TV, we are expected to lose. That's the way we felt. We talked about this on many shows ago. And now I turn on the TV in anticipation to watch the Mets, regardless of what's going on in my life. I want to watch the game, and I expect to win now. What a turnaround! And it's just a great feeling from what we felt in late May. It's just amazing. It really is.
100%. I got nothing more to add to that. You're 100% right. We did get to a point where we're like, if we turn on the TV, we are expecting to watch bad baseball. That did happen this season. You can go back if you so wish in late May. We were like, this is probably rock bottom that we're going to witness. Like it wasn't rock bottom as Mets fans because we've endured a lot of misery over the years, but it was rock bottom for sure this season, right? Especially when you compile what happened last season. But right now, Rob, nothing else to add. This team is playing tremendous, and I'm still wary about getting my expectations sky high. My expectations are high. I'm weird about getting them sky high. But right now, I'm just going to say this. I'm just riding the wave. I'm riding the wave, the Grimace wave, the OMG wave, every wave that the Mets have to offer. I'm riding the wave, and we're going to see what this team can produce. That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah, and when you had to jump off a couple not too long ago, I talked about our win totals to start the season. Were you 84 or 83? Where were you at?
I think I was 85 and you were 87.
Yeah. I knew it was pretty. It was pretty. A couple of games over 500 for both of us. And remember, you got kind of laughed at. I got hysterically laughed at for talking about 87 wins. And now everybody's like, oh, maybe these guys were right, because we always thought this team was better than they were before the season even started. And we thought that we both of us, we were one of the few that thought this rotation was going to be fine. Pretty, I wouldn't say great, but above average. And they have been that. And we've been on the Severino bandwagon before anybody. Like, I'm not trying to toot our own horns here, but we talked about it. We went live when they signed Severino, and we said, this is a good signing. He's going to be good for us, because all it took was being healthy for Severino, because he has the stuff. And, somebody brought it up. I forgot who brought it up in the chat, that we have a lot. Remember, the Yankee fans were laughing at us that we have all the Yankee outcasts. How Severino and Beta would help the Yankees right now, right? Yeah. Oh, how about Luis Torrens? They need catching help over there. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for those outcasts, by the way, because they're really helping us win right now. And are on the back pages while the Yankees flounder and can't throw anybody out on the base path. But thank you. To finish up the stream, Chris, I'm ready for the last 3 games of the first half. Sweep this series, right? 2 out of 3 is okay. I think some people will be disappointed. Most of us will be disappointed. Sweep this series, make no doubt, make the Rockies want to crawl back to Colorado. I don't want them to even want to be here right now. That's what I want. I want a beatdown. I want a series where there's no doubt, where they just beat the hell out of the Colorado Rockies. 6-0, 7-2, 9-2. I want a complete beatdown of this team, because I think the Mets need a series where they put everybody on alert in the league that, wow, the Mets aren't just beating good teams. They're not giving a chance to the bad teams. And that's when teams are going to start paying attention to the Mets, even though they are right now. But now they're going to be scared of us, scared to face us. And that's what I want. I want to see a series where there's no doubt. The Mets have, even though they've been damn good, they really haven't had that series where they're like, everybody takes a step back and like, whoa, who the fuck is this team? That's the series I want to end the first half, to put a little bit into everybody's mind that, hey, the second half is coming, and guess who's coming? The Mets train is coming, right? That's going to be rolling down the tracks right now, ready to barrel down on your assets. That's what I want in this Rocky series, Chris, to end it up. And whatever your final thoughts are, buddy.
That's it. I agree, 100%. Make a statement, make the Mets fans proud, because you know what? This is a prideful fan base. They expect a lot from this team, and you see it whenever they struggle. This fan base is going to have a very hard time accepting that. There's going to be other fans, some fans that are more accepting of it than others, right? But bottom line is, New York, whether you're a Yankee or a Met, it's a brutal market to be in if you're losing. So keep the good times rolling. Just win. Finish out this first half strong, and we'll enjoy this All-Star break. We'll see what Pete Alonso does in the home run derby. And guess what? It's go time in the second half. I'm looking forward to it. I agree. I would be disappointed. As crazy as it sounds, I'd be disappointed if this is not a sweep. But one game at a time. Focus on Tanner Gordon, and then the rest will take care of itself. Appreciate y'all being here. Let's go Mets.
Absolutely. Are you doing a post-game tonight?
TBD.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
I want to promote it just in case. All right.
I'll leave it at that. TBD. If I do, then pay attention at the notifications button, but I can't promise. I got to start packing because my vacation is coming up too. So
that's right. The World Tour continues.
The World Tour CP.
All right, guys. So that's another amazing Mets pregame show in the books. Mets game 1 of the series against the Rockies to end up the first half. Let's see what they do. Big time expectations in this series. Let's go for the sweep, guys. With that said, everybody have a great night. Enjoy the game. Let's go Mets. And we'll see you next time, guys. Have a great night.
Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the M-E-T-S Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go?